plot synopsis of the creator.
That's funny because it's the first thing I have on my list. So I believe this is according to IMDb. The creator, as the future war between human race and artificial intelligence rages on, ex-Special Forces agent Joshua is recruited to hunt down and kill the creator, the elusive architect of advanced AI, also known as Nirmata in the movie, which they show in like this little dictionary-looking screen at the beginning.
Yep.
Joshua is recruited to hunt down and kill the creator, the elusive architect of advanced AI. The creator has developed a mysterious weapon that has the power to end the war and all of mankind, allegedly. As Joshua and his team of elite operatives venture into enemy-occupied territory, they soon discover the world-ending weapon is actually an AI in the form of a young child. And the movie goes on from there. That covers roughly the first act of the movie.
And are the AIs purely AIs, or do they combine like elements of being a human and elements of being an AI together? Does that make sense to where there is a human soul and AIs attached?
So
that's what I was kind of getting from the movie, that it wasn't purely just a robot.
So
a bit of both.
They are, but the idea being that this is something I wish the movie had been a little more like solid on in the writing. There's quite a few things, and I'll get into it. But since you asked, it is more of that they were created, but then somewhere along the line, somewhere along the way, the line between whether the AI was sort of this intelligent living being versus just being a computer and like a program that you shut off. And it's kind of one of the themes in the movie, is this idea that like Joshua's going around and every time he kills one of these things, he goes, I just turned it off. And the logic begins to sort of get like twisted on him. Again, it's a criticism of the movie. I don't think that they focus on some of that hard enough. In the sense that I don't think that they get into it the way that they should have. The movie does a lot of things well and has a lot of problems. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to spoil a couple things, but you would have picked these out as soon as they happened and been like, seriously? Like, you're kidding me, right? And I'll say that the things that I
spoil it. That's how we review, David, so you need to.
I'll get there. We'll get to spoilers soon enough. The things that I dislike about this movie seem like studio interference more than Gareth Edwards' vision for the movie. Opinion.
Interesting.
Like solely like I'm taking this on as like there are certain things that happen in this movie that I go, these are very out of place for the type of movie that this is. I know you said you watched some of it. I assume you got the opinion of it that it is very serious. Like this is a dark sci-fi existential type of movie. I would assume that's kind of where you landed.
Yep. And I actually appreciated that with what I did see about the movie, that it went in that direction, because so much is just filled with, lighthearted comedic relief, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just in everything now.
Well, I hate to,
I don't mean like nihilism,
right? It's not, and that's the thing is, I don't think this movie is nihilistic. I don't think it does a good enough job. I don't think that the elements and the themes are strong enough throughout to really bring it home for me. I'm very mixed on this, and I hate to break the news to you, but unfortunately there are some very out of place jokes in this movie, like stuff that's just like, oh, why did you do that? Like very, like there's two in particular that are incredibly frustrating. I was like willing to forgive one of them, but it happens again, and I'm like, this is not the type of movie for like what I would call shenanigans. Straight up. Like dumb interference type shenanigans where someone from the studio read the script, and this actually happens, all right? So spoiler, quick little spoiler, because I can't keep talking about the movie without giving a little more context to at least one of these. And in what I would consider probably the start of the second act, Joshua and Alfie, who is the young girl who's the AI, they're running from not only the part of Asia that they call it's like the Asian Alliance type deal. So it's essentially them and then like the United States, and the United States is like completely anti-AI. Funny, right? Kind of there are definitely some modern things going on with this, but I like that they keep some of that stuff pretty vague, and that they don't just go like, it's exactly this thing, but you can definitely read what they're throwing out in certain scenes in the movie. But it's these two factions essentially, and America, a nuke is dropped on LA and the AI is blamed for it. And so and then when the Asian Alliance essentially starts this, they basically go like, well, we like AI, we think it's incredibly helpful for us, and it's advancing society for us, so screw you, we're going to keep doing it. And so the United States military-industrial complex essentially goes to war with these people over a preference that they have. Kind of an interesting little plot point there, I thought, which I appreciated. I thought that was well implemented, and I think the first act in this movie is pretty strong. But then this moment happens, Joseph, where they're running away from a number of people who are out to get Alfie specifically, the young AI, and they go into this house and get a truck, and Joshua is trying to start the truck, and the police of this like Asian country are surrounding them. Right, it's like a bunch of AI. I think there's a few humans in the mix as well, and they throw a grenade into the garage where Joshua and Alfie are. Right, and we're talking a real grenade. Like this thing's gonna blow up and kill them if it goes off. It's counting down. And a random dog picks up this grenade in its mouth, carries it back outside to the police, drops it, and blows them all up so that Alfie and Joshua can escape. And I was like, I cannot believe you put that in this movie.
That's what we like to call plot convenience.
Dude, more than like, holy smokes, dude. Like, just, you want to talk about ripping me out of a movie? We talked last week about suspension of disbelief. And I'm almost getting frustrated. This moment in this movie frustrates me so much. And it happens again, by the way, with a different animal later on in the movie. Not to the degree that this happens. Like, it's not as impactful as it was. But you could tell that these two moments, dude, were specifically played for the, haha, isn't it funny that a dog did that? And I could see like studio interference all over this, where they're reading the script and they go, man, this movie's really serious. You need to put some levity right here. You know, all of these people have just died, and it's really, you know, it was almost like Marvel popped in the room.
Have big brain. They have small brain.
Dude,
they need laugh.
I don't think one of the other things, and I'll get into it. I don't think the character writing is very good in this movie. I think it's pretty weak for most of the cast. I think Joshua and...
You got ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
I got to ask an important question.
Go ahead.
Did the dog die?
No. That was the other thing that was ridiculous about it, too. That this dog drops this grenade perfectly. It rolls down a little hill to where all of these police are standing, blows them all up, and walks away. And, you know, it's one of those things that people in the theater went...
Dog.
No, it was just a normal, random dog. Just a dog. And... you know, people in the theater went, ha ha ha, and I'm just like, just cheap laughs. I just hate it, dude, because I want a director's cut of this where it's a lot more focused on Joshua and Alfie and their journey from beginning to end, and we're not dealing with just this stupid. Like, all they had to do for that scene, because they already had a moment of tension, like, right before that. And all they needed to do was, it's that pacing, right? We talk about pacing a lot. Boom, boom, like, things are happening. We need to keep the story moving forward. So the situation in the house happens. We're past that. They get into the car. The police are coming after them. Oh, man, the car's not starting. Alfie uses her abilities to get the car started, so you're adding character development to her in that moment. And they drive off, and the police are, like, shooting at them as they're driving away.
Right.
You're getting through these moments, but, you know, and because the movie's only about a 2-hour running time, and I think for the most part the pacing is, like, fine. I wouldn't say it's great, because there are quite a few, like, stumbling blocks along the way, and a lot of it is just because they don't flesh out any of the other characters in the movie except for Joshua and Alfie, and then Jimmy Chan, who was in Eternals.
Yeah.
She's his wife, Maya. She gets enough, right? For her role in the movie, I think what they did with her is fine. It's not incredible, but it's also not bad. I actually was happy. Like, I didn't realize it was her, and I was like, oh man, like, she actually did all right in this. You know, she had for the role that they gave her, it's decent.
So what was her motivation?
What do you mean, Maya's?
Like, yeah, Maya's, like, character motivation throughout the movie.
It's a pretty big spoiler.
Okay.
Which might have already given it away, but her role in the movie is essentially Joshua's motivation. So there are events that happen at the beginning, and then the military, like, and this is one of the worst parts, man. I think with you, we talk about the character stuff, because, you know, in the plot summary, it talks about how Joshua goes with this elite team to try to track down this robot, this AI. And I was getting major Aliens vibes from those specific parts. Yeah. But there's no character development for any of the military people in this movie. They're all just random military person, like A, B, C, D. Then you have Colonel, and you have Colonel's like dog, like the one that is doing all the things. And I would have thought that the Colonel, and his name is McBride in the movie, who's like her right-hand man. I was hoping for maybe some development there. They do it, like, you get a little bit of the Colonel towards the beginning of the movie, but not much. And it just becomes really frustrating, because as the movie goes on, you're like, the movie would have been mostly the same if these characters weren't in it.
That's interesting.
Which is really, it was just, you know, that's the biggest weakness of this movie, and what makes it a little bit harder for me to recommend is the character writing. I think it's below average.
What do you think about the world building?
Oh, now, I'm glad you brought this up. On the other hand, I think the world building is strong. I think this is one of the reasons why I would say that I think that Gareth Edwards is I have him in the category right now of Gareth Edwards is a good director. And what I mean by that is that he understands, like, he puts a team together that knows how to get things done. He has a very specific visual style in his movies. This movie's got some similarities visually to Rogue One, which was, I think, one of the strongest points of Rogue One, especially when it came out. He directed that, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
Yes.
He knows how, like, visually how to put all of these pieces together. He co-wrote this with someone else. And I don't know who's at fault for a lot of the stuff in the script, but I just think it's really weak. But visually, very, very good. Lots of very interesting visuals. I think that whoever the team was, I didn't look it up, but whoever the team was that put the CGI together in this movie, it is some of the best that I've seen in a long time, which isn't saying a lot, but it's excellent. It was so nice to finally watch a movie where anytime that there was any sort of, like, AI on the screen, or they're doing, you know, stuff with because they do this thing where certain AI decide that they want to have these like human visuals to them, or like these look characteristics to them. So they get like faces and skin, and they wear a lot of clothing. And then like some of the AI that you can tell that they just decided not to do that. It would have been nice if we could have had a scene that maybe just talked about that a little bit, and maybe that there's some disagreements between the AI about, no, we need to embrace who we are versus trying to be like the rest of them, or if there was some stuff like that. But there's enough there that it gets you kind of thinking about this stuff. You know what I mean? But it does not break your immersion into the movie even once. I'll stand on that. I think it is. I think visually the movie is incredibly strong. Just everything feels like they took their time with that stuff. That feels like a lived-in world, which is really good. That's a complaint that we have with a lot of modern media in general. The Asian countries and the cities there look much different than when you see LA and when you see other parts of I think California in general is mostly what you see in the States, but there's different areas to that versus what's going on over there. I don't know if it's been obvious to you, but this is basically an allegory for Vietnam. It's very much like an anti-war theme, but it's an allegory for Vietnam.
Oh, nice.
I
don't hate it.
It doesn't even pretend that it's not, and I appreciate the effort on that, even if I don't think it follows through 100%. I think that John David Washington, who plays Joshua, I think he's a good actor. I think that he had everything about his character in this that I have been able to dissect so far, right? I mean, I've been thinking about this movie since I saw it yesterday. He's good. I even liked him in Tenet, even though I don't like Tenet. I think that he's got charisma. I think he's got what it takes to be a solid, like A-list actor. He's got Denzel Washington's blood in him, like he's well on his way. Most of the fault in the movie I don't think falls on him. Madeline Voiles, who plays Alfie, the little girl, one of the better child actors that I've seen in a long time in a movie. There's a scene towards the end of the movie where she's just like panicking and in tears, right? And it's totally believable. I'm like, it came through. I'm like, congratulations. I was like, you did it right. So that's why I say that Gareth Edwards, he shouldn't have written the script for this. They should have had someone come in. At the very least, if he wanted to write it, like if it was kind of his vision, he should have had someone come in to do another draft to help him focus it a little bit more.
I rewrite it a time or two.
And ask him like, hey, let's take a so I wrote these characters down. You have Joshua and Alfie, who are your protagonists, essentially. Mm-hmm. Maya, who is Joshua's wife, Haran, who is Ken Watanabe, who's essentially the main AI he's one of the top brass, you could say, in the rebellion against the United States. Colonel Howell, who is the colonel, there's not much to her. She lost both of her sons. Yeah, she's the colonel. Yeah, she's like evil lady colonel. It's so frustrating how they could have done a lot more with her. They really could have. You have Drew, who is a friend of Joshua, who once was all in on hating the AI and then fell in love with one of them, which is a small spoiler, but that's kind of where his character is, and that's about all you get from him. So because I was kind of like, oh cool, that's such like a interesting change, and then there's not much more to his character. Unfortunately there's a lot of convenient plot elements that happen too consistently throughout the movie, that are just like, man, if you had taken just a few more minutes, you could have convinced me better of certain plot points that happen throughout the movie. And then you have McBride, who is he's the henchman, the second in command to the colonel. And that's sort of your core central cast. Like, they're the ones that get the most screen time in the movie. There's a few other characters, but again, like, so many of the other characters, they're just not memorable. There's nothing there to really, like, latch onto. They just sort of, like, exist in the movie to help move the plot forward. And I understand that sometimes that's necessary, but, like, because the main cast is pretty weak, like, as I was listing, that was kind of me listing them off in the order of importance and how I would have structured it in giving them sort of more to work with as far as their character development. Like, dang, man, Gareth Edwards should have, like, given it to James Gunn and been like, can you help me with the characters here? Like, it would have been a little bit better had he done that. And this is why I'm always, like, hounding on this, but it's like this writer-director thing only needs to happen in indie films, because you have to try to save on the budget somewhere. And you can write a decent enough script for an indie film to be able to get away with something like that, especially if you keep those things kind of simple.
If you have a more refined process to where there's a lot more rewrites for it, to where you needs
something.
You know what I mean? Maybe that's more of what it was.
Now, I would
that those checks weren't there.
Exactly. And it's not we need 5 writers in the writer's room, because that becomes too many cooks in the kitchen. I think 2-3 people, you have a main writer, and then you have 1 or 2 assistants. Gareth Edwards has the vision. He knows where he wants to take this, but he has 2 people that are very excellent. Maybe one of them is a very good character writer, and then someone else, maybe they're just a good editor. They're really good at maybe helping with, like, the pacing of something. Now, I have to say, part of the pacing does come down to the actual editor. So not your like script editor, but your editor. After production is done.
Typically help with editing too.
Yeah, they're gonna watch it and be like, hey, maybe you can change this a little bit. There's just like,
I know you know more about this than I do, but I thought they typically work hand in hand and, like, piecing it together. But do I understand that wrong?
They definitely have. Well, I wonder if it depends. I want to say that they have help and they do oversight on it. And I imagine there are, and it probably depends on the production company, and someone in the troll room might know, but I would imagine, because I'm trying to go from, like, what I think it is versus the way that I would want it. Because, like, when I edit, I typically don't want anyone telling me anything about it but then I also shoot, right? So, like, I'm shooting, I'm editing. Like, if I was doing an indie film, I would probably be, I probably
you really consider yourself a
I'm an auteur. No, not at all, dude. All it is when when you're at the level, like at a lower level, you have to just pick up the slack in places. You have to learn at least the basics of a lot of things, because you got to be able to fill in those roles. Yeah.
All of a sudden, David just starts releasing slow-mo videos on TikTok.
Now, yeah, that's a discussion for another time, but there is a difference between the way that you do that in a film versus what you're doing for, like, YouTube videos and sports and other things like that.
Right.
It's a totally different sort of, like, mindset to a degree.
So where does this movie fall for you? If you could think of 2 other movies, where would you put this between? And I can list some out for you if you'd like.
So the first movie, if I was to do, like, because I think about this sometimes, but, like, if I was to do, like, a Mahler-esque breakdown of The Creator, one of the movies that I would use to show how you could make The Creator a stronger movie would be Aliens, specifically from a character writing perspective, because it's actually not story beats necessarily, but from a character perspective, it's very similar.
Okay.
You have a group of military grunts. One movie gives all of them a personality and gives them all distinct things about them in the course of, like, 10 minutes. Like, it's such solid character writing. And then you have Ridley and the girl that she's trying to protect. And there's something that everything about that just flows really well together. It's about the same length, I think. It's about a 2-hour movie as well. So there's a lot that you can do there to make it work. So that would be one.
So let me do it like this.
I would probably say Blade Runner for creating a better AI, like humans, so that's kind of sci-fi thing, because you can see a little bit of that in there. That would probably be the second one, but I'd have to think about it a little bit more.
Okay, well, let me do movies that released this year and tell me just as on a general level.
Okay.
Where you put them through.
Okay.
All right. So, is it better, worse, or same as Dungeons and Dragons?
Better.
Better.
For me, better.
Okay. Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Probably about the same.
About the same. Okay.
Yeah.
But
that's tough. That one's tough.
Super Mario Bros.
Oh man, probably close to the same, but I think I like those movies for different reasons.
Okay. A few more. All right, John Wick 4.
Better. I don't
Better than John Wick 4.
Yeah, I don't think John Wick 4 didn't age well for me.
Okay. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part
1. Better, because I think the pacing's way better in this than in Mission Impossible.
I got 2 more and then we'll be done. All right. Okay. Extraction 2.
I like Extraction better. I like Extraction 1 and 2 better. But they're not the same. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that Extraction 1 and 2 have really strong elements, and that those movies know exactly what they are, and they execute on that very well.
What about
Blue
Beetle?
Hang on. Let me say this thing, though. The first Extraction has very similar... so if we were talking 3 movies right now, and I'm glad you mentioned Extraction, if we were talking 3 movies right now that I would sort of like stack up as like if you took the elements from those movies and sort of applied them similarly in The Creator, you would probably have a movie that I could give like a 9 if that existed. I don't think this movie lives up to any of the hype. I've seen people calling it a masterpiece. I don't think it's a masterpiece. I think it's a masterclass in sort of the cinematography aspect of it. Like I said, visually, this movie is one of the best that I've seen in a while.
And world building.
And I think there is strong world building in it. I think there are elements that aren't as good, but again, I think a lot of that comes back to the character writing. And because that's not as strong, they just didn't focus enough on really getting me invested in the world that I was in. But if you took Aliens, Blade Runner, and the first Extraction movie, and you took what I believe makes those 3 movies as strong as they are, and you applied those things to The Creator, I think you would have had a far better movie. And I think, dude, when we talk about criticism, right, we have to have a standard of like what we're looking up to, and I think that those are good standards for that. You've got Aliens for what it does for character writing. You've got Blade Runner for world building, and you've got Extraction for the relationship between the what you would call the wolf and pup relationship, because that's kind of the idea of the movie. The same way God of War did that. The 2 new ones, where you have a relationship between a mature, sort of disillusioned character and a young, hopeful, innocent, like child, like that kind of character.
How does this movie stack up with Transformers?
Oh, I haven't seen it yet, but
not Transformers. I'm sorry, Terminator.
Which Terminator? The second one?
First one.
Well, it doesn't fall into the same category. I think those movies are still stronger. I think they've got stronger plot elements. It's definitely not better than Terminator 2. Dude, Terminator 2 and Aliens for me are like, it would take,
the top.
If it's up there with like Empire for me. Like when people come out all the time and they're like, this is better than, like this Star Wars thing that is new is better than Empire. I'm like, you're not correct about that. And I just,
it's like you got Empire, Barbie, Terminator.
Yeah, definitely. I love character writing, and I don't want to tell you yet. You'll find out later this year. I want to watch it again because there's some stuff I need to kind of.
How about this? How about I'll watch it because you pumped me up for it, and I'll watch it and finish it, and then the next time we come on, we'll talk about Ahsoka, Wheel of Time, and then I'll give my thoughts on The Creator, and we can dive into it more. We don't have to do like a deep breakdown with Ahsoka or Wheel of Time. Just do some general thoughts and
because it'll be over by the next time we record.
Yep. The last episode premieres tomorrow for Ahsoka and this Friday for Wheel of Time. I hope. I think they're only supposed to be 8 episodes.
Okay, so I think I've covered just about everything. Let me just check real quick. Studio interference. Got that already. Yeah, there's just some stuff that it'll give me enough time to watch it again, I think, because I kind of wish I'd been able to see it in IMAX. Like, just from a visual. And listen, everybody knows how I am about this stuff. I was just happy to see something, man, that got at least close to the goal. Like, as something that had... It's disappointing because it had so much potential to be like a modern sci-fi classic. So much potential. But it just misses the mark in some places that are really, really important to get into that
Critical.
8, 9, 10 category for me.
Yeah.
And so I think overall, I guess I've been going back and forth with it.
Does it sit in the same place to you, like, as One Piece, or do you find One Piece better? I know they're two different.
The character writing's better in One Piece. I think visually,
so you think
creator's
One Piece
better.
is a step up from the creator?
Uh,
Like, this whole story and character writing,
yeah.
and everything considered, world building too.
Yeah.
Visually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's much deeper, well thought out, caring development of characters in One Piece than there is in the creator. And that, again, that's what I'm saying, man. It's like there are, listen, between now One Piece, Arcane, I'm sure I'm missing something. And I would probably say House of the Dragon, which I got Jake D to watch this week, by the way.
Oh.
He's been texting me all week just being like, oh, I can't believe this moment, or, oh, man, Damon's wife, or blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's been pretty funny. Yeah, man, I'm so frustrated with elements of this movie. I think they, it sucks on one hand because I think the writer strike hurt this movie because, or the actors and the writer strike, it hurt this movie because no one could really do marketing for it. So they had trailers, but they couldn't do the marketing for it. And I think it hurt the box office for this movie quite a bit. It's not one of those things now. Like it was so close to being what it needed to be like solid 8. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But it falls into like a 6.5-ish. Like, I can't quite give it a 7, but the visuals and like a lot of that aspect and where the marks are, it puts it above average for me, but not far enough into a category of being able to say, this is solid. It's at least a solid 7. Like, absolutely recommend. It's got some issues, but it's not enough for me to tell you that it's not worth it. Now, when it comes out on like streaming, or if like you go to a matinee, probably worth it in that case. I don't think that anyone that watches this is just going to be like utterly disappointed in it. Maybe Mahler will be, but I think that there's enough there, and this is not a part of my rating at all, but I am happy this movie exists because, again, like I was saying, because of the camera that they use for this, it shows that there is potential now for someone to be able to take like a small amount of money and potentially start making indie films that could absolutely do well.
That's what's up.
And I love that. And it's why this movie is so frustrating, because it's like it could have been really something special. And I think that whether it was studio interference or just like a lack of ability, because like Gareth Edwards has only written 2 movies. I'm pretty sure. He's only written 2, like he wrote this, and he wrote his sort of like, not his debut, but the movie that put him into the spotlight. It's called Monsters, which doesn't even have a lot of writing in it. It's actually it's kind of an indie flick. It's really cool visually. Again, I think, like I was saying, he's got at least some sort of eye when it comes to a lot of that. But they should have brought in somebody to professionally write this movie and like give it a little bit more depth and a little bit more character. And they should have. I think, man, it's like one of those things that they could have spent a little more time on it. Got that script up to a really something special, And I think that would have put it over the edge as like something that I would have been talking about for years to come. And from a visual perspective, I will. But like it'll always be with that caveat of like the character writing's not great. But this is a standard as far as like we want this standard for visuals. Now give us writing that lives up to that.
Out of it.
Yeah. And that's ultimately where I landed on it, man. And I know a lot of people, like especially in sort of like I'm a film critic. Like people are really into it. I just don't think it's that good, and I think that I would be able, with enough time to like sit down and like break it down, I could bring more people to my side to be like, the character writing's just not that